The purpose of this project was to tie in my past, my present, and in many ways my future. Because whatever happens in my past and the present affects the future. And so I started exploring my past. I released this mixtape in 2016, Second to None, and there was a track called Made in America. But I talked about what was going on with my mom, my grandma, their sacrifices, what they did to put me in my position now to be successful. Wanted to bring in my mom because that's also very personal, and she can go back 2 generations before me, so she gives a unique perspective too.
They come from China back in really World War One, 19 something. They were 18, 19 in China during the Japanese War with that. So same thing. They left China. They went to Vietnam when they were teenagers with relatives. That's it, and then by themselves. And that's how my parents met in Vietnam, and they settled family over there. And it's the same thing. And then during the Vietnam War, and I left the war. I left the Vietnam War and then escaped them with me and my 2 brothers. That's it. And we traveled like 3 days in the sea. 3 days in the sea, and my parents paid a lot of money for us to get out. We were 3 days, 3 nights, and the boat is like 35 feet or something. It's super small, like packed like 100 people. It's something like that, 100 people in there. And we were like 3 days, 3 nights in the ocean. And then finally we make it to the land, and the government in Malaysia let us get in. And some of the city, you go to the wrong spot, they wouldn't let you in. They kick you out. So they pull you back in the ocean in the middle, and pull you out, international water, they kick you out. But fortunately, we make it in there, they accept us. So we are the first one in that island called Pulau Bidong. But over in Malaysia, we are really fortunate. We stay only like 6 months. We have no money, and then my parents didn't give any money. We just have like $10. And we met a really nice American family in Iowa. And he's the one I call my God. He's my godparent. And he been to Vietnam War. He served Vietnam War he's a pastor. So he went over there for missionary. And at the same time, where I was, it was so really funny story. And he saw how the Vietnamese people live, and he really adopted a country there. So mainly in Iowa, governor calling to helping adopt and pick up sponsor people. Mainly he jumped in, and he said he's willing to do it. And he's super wealthy, have a big farm in Iowa, and then immediately he picked up a young family. So I'm the one lucky in getting enrolled to his family. I'm always count my blessing. I learned that always count my blessing. I'm very lucky, able to see all different generation, different culture, different people, especially my industry, my profession. I work in a car room casino. I see a lot of stuff. That's the job who changed me a lot, because up and down, how to accept people, how to see all the good lie and bad lie, and how become good lie, changing bad lie, all the stuff. So it's really give me a lot of experience how this country is and how my old country is. So I know how to compare, and then how to talk to my kid, I could use the old culture is teaching my kid as my custom, how was my conform with that, and also I blend with the American new lifestyle to let them freedom, learn the culture, the future, but on in the back, I always pull them back. It is your culture. I have to kind of mix it up. It seems like work, and it seems like if you keep your old tradition all the time, and the kid they grow up here, they wouldn't match, and then they would go out, they wouldn't learn stuff, they wouldn't mix with a friend. You learn it's 100% with Americans, a new life of living, and then it not match when they come home with the old tradition, a little bit tradition tie counter your comfy way with your kid at home. You don't have the tradition way, family union time.
When I was putting this project together, I was like, okay, well, Diante knows who I am. He has a really unique perspective because I've known him since middle school.
My name is Diante Lee. Born and raised in San Diego, California, Lemon Grove area, where me and Raymond connect, or Raymond and I connect, is through Lemon Grove and Spring Valley youth sports to get us started, whether it was Lemon Grove Little League or the Los Toros Bulls as children. That's where I think a lot of us who are from this area started to make our connections, is through stuff like sports or different community events. Going to school together at Palm before it became Liberty Charter, going to school together at Mount Miguel. And I guess our relationship was kind of forged in the sense of community that was built in this area. So the culture here is almost the lack of culture in a way. Or at least it's everybody having these kind of strained relationships with where they are versus where they're from. I can speak personally. I have a strained relationship with the family I know that exists on the southern and eastern part of the country that I don't know as well. I have a strained relationship with my feelings about the military, because if it were not for that, I would not be in this position, because a lot of people in older generations of my family ended up out here thanks to serving the country.
Yep.
So but I have my own feelings about that. So it kind of puts this strain on the relationship. I know that this is something that you and I have spoken about in our relationship, is your relationship with your heritage. Because this place is what you know, but it is not all that your family is. That's right?
True. Yeah.
You know, so there's just this, and when I say strain, I don't mean negatively. It is just a reality of the situation. I know a lot of Pacific Islanders whose children are like first generation out here. So their relationship with their grandparents, the way their grandparents feel about this country versus the way they feel about this country, is different. A lot of people who are learning English as a second language who may have immigrated from Mexico, their parents' feelings about this country is a lot different than theirs.
It's built in me that where you're from allows me to gauge your credibility,
right.
Allows me to gauge whether or not you're for reals, where you grew up. I don't know, like, what is your take on, like, where you're from? Because, like, where you're from matters, right? But it's also a stigma.
It is, but who are you as a person if you can't identify where you're from and what that means? And how do we build bonds with people if we cannot identify where people are from? So it's a double-edged sword. We have to have these solid foundational relationships between where I am from, my proximity of where I'm from, to where you're from, and where the differences are. So I can try to establish, okay, we meet here, we don't meet here. I need to deal with you in this way.
Right.
I should not talk to you in this way, or I should connect with you in this way.
Yeah.
So it's important. It's just a really difficult kind of thread to tread on, you know?
Yep. This ghetto term is, a lot of it's the stigma, right? I mean, obviously, like, there's kids who went through some troublesome situations, but really a lot of us were the product of our environment.
Right.
I mean, and so for them to attach like Mount Megiddo and be like, oh, you went to Mount Megiddo, like, that's, you know, that's who you are. Like, you are basically where you come from.
Right. The one thing that is definitely happening that did not seem to be going on when I was younger, is there seems to be kind of a better effort in reinvesting into where we're from, especially in Southeast San Diego. Better efforts at fixing some of these terrible roads that we've had. I think that what's going on in certain school districts with people trying to make reinvestments. I know San Diego Unified has made a huge effort in trying to reinvest in schools and areas that have been kind of forgotten, where kids are being bussed out, you know, into the nicer schools in San Diego. So when I left college, I was coming back to start a family, which felt like kind of tying a loose end. I get to expand the generation of Lees where I grew up. That was a big deal for me. And then just developing an adult relationship with everything that I had as a child. So developing an adult relationship with my city, with my community, developing an adult relationship with my high school, going from being a student there to being alumni to now being an employee. Developing an adult relationship where I played youth football at, going from being one of the kids that was taking all of these experiences, and now I get to be someone who can help impart some of those experiences that I had when I was younger. Tying that loose end or just completing that loop was a really big deal for me. And I don't know what got that started, but for whatever reason, and you and I have had those conversations before, but there's just something about the way that I grew up here that has just kind of put pressure on this button in my life to where I feel like the best way that I can represent where I came from is to apply all of the same things that I got when I was younger into the next generation of people from this area. And that was really why I decided to come back. You know, I do think I could have stayed in Sacramento where I was going to school. There were conversations that I had had with a bunch of high schools out there about trying to find a way to start my career in education when I was there. But I felt like the best way I could do this justice is to start this part of my adulthood where I finished my childhood.
Nothing gets more authentic than coming home to do this project with people that I know I grew up with. And then when I was exploring my past more, just growing up here in Southeast San Diego, just interacting with my mom, interacting with people here, then going to college and like learning more about my culture, seeing people who look like me, understanding where I came from, it kind of just came to a head. Like it brought it all together. I was like, this is like maybe something I can really work with. That point where I made that song and just exploring the past and how everything's brought me to this point. At the end of the day, what I wanted to showcase was who I am. And there's actually a line in my song where I talk about was I made in America or a product of these like PBS characters or a product of my grandma, blood, sweat, and tears.
I've been looking for the day, looking for a way to turn the page. If this is the dream, was I made by America or a product of those PBS characters? A product of blood, sweat, and tears. A reminder of my grandma, drowning never clear. Am I seeking?
I think something that really popped out for me was the last track. It's kind of like a more of a gospel type vibe. But it's called Inspiration, and it's a meaningful song to me because I actually wrote the basis of this song 10 years ago. I wrote it in 2009 when I first started rapping. I wrote it at the beginning of this 10-year window of when I was in high school, and I was like, I want to be an inspiration, you know, blah, 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 all that. And then 10 years later, 2019, here I am. I was like, this is like, for me personally, this was gold because I was like, man, how cool would it be if I'm rapping these lyrics from the other side of the window? After all the shit that I've been through, everything that I've learned, like how cool would it be if I'm looking back and I'm rapping the same thing? It's like I'm rapping to myself. Jeremy even kind of made a point. He's like, this is kind of like writing a letter to yourself in the future. And so I thought, coolest concept ever. Didn't know if I was gonna track it though. I was like, we'll go with the flow. We go into the studio, and then I hear people like singing, and I was like, fuck, we gotta do this song. So we track Inspiration, and I do my hooks, I do my verses, and then I have this habit of like, whoever can sing, I get hyped, and I'm like, come in studio, like just do something, right? And then so I brought in Shauna, Jessica, and Kenny, and they all like have different ranges of their voice, and I was like, all right, maybe just like, you know, just kind of harmonize the hook, kind of like go with the melody, you know, maybe repeat some words, ad-lib it or whatever. Let's see what we can do. So they did that first, and then we ended up having Shauna and Jessica on that second hook, and then lastly, that I guess it's like a bridge or something. It kind of extends all the way to the end of the song. we just had each vocalist just kind of like just freestyle with their voice over and over, like all the way of that, like within that last minute, right? The keys change and everything, and then and then man, I don't know, they finished it. I remember it was like Kenny went first, and then Shauna, and then Jessica, and then we were like, okay, how do we make this fit? Because we have 3 different styles, 3 different types of freestyles. And then we were deliberating for a couple minutes. I was like, you know what? Let's just put it together. You know, let's chop it up. And then I turn around, I look at my sound engineer. I'm like, okay, we want to chop it up. And he's like, already did that. And then he pressed the play button, and we were listening to it, and we were like, holy shit, this is dope, man.
The biggest thing I've seen with you and your growth is that you've developed all of these more intimate connections with everything that you're doing. And I'm starting to see that more and more and more as you get older. Whatever the case may be, I see now you are somebody who has a purpose that is being turned all the way up to 11 now. You know, it's not so much a, oh, well, I can always do this, or I'm pretty sure I'd be good at this. It's more like, I found my thing, or I think I found my thing. I'm gonna put the pedal to the floor on this thing, and if it doesn't work, fine, but it will never not work because I had 1 foot in here and 1 foot halfway in here. And I hear that in our conversations now, is this conviction with what you talk about. The themes in your life, I'm starting to see all kind of lining up in a certain way. And we've talked about it through your music. We've talked about it through our partnership with Mount Miguel and Leaf. All of these themes in your life are kind of lining up. And I think that that's where we're starting to see maybe the best version of you. We're all going to have, as people who know you, love you, and care about you, we're going to get to see what this is going to look like for you when you have this one singular focus that you know your purpose is,